it really was like a scary time for me. I got sick twice, almost died twice.
So always have death in the background.
That kind of gave me this sense of searching for meaning from a very young age. You know, I spent a bit of time at Bible college, and the program was kind of devolving. There's so many people doing this, and your PhD has to be unique. It has to be that you end up saying something that's a good idea but clearly wrong. This assignment, which was to have communion in their room, and it was horrible. It was one of the worst moments of my life.
How did you meet your wife?
I met her in college. I said, well, you know, there's a dance at the end of the year and I'm not going to see you for a bit. You want to go? And she said, no, I'm not attracted to you. I never will be. That she started to really love me and to appreciate me as someone who she could see being her husband, someone who has like an internal strength.
Zack, it's phenomenal to have you here. You're one of my favorite people.
Thank you
For coming. You also have a very interesting story. You are in the process of converting to Orthodox Christianity from Anglicanism. You grew up non-denominational Protestant. You come from a very mixed background. Mother is Italian, father is Ashkenazi Jewish. You are a Japanophile. You got married fairly young. You're a lover of Lord of the Rings, C.S. Lewis, classics in general.
Yes.
What is your story?
So, you know, I think from a young age, I really understood that, like, you don't live forever. So, like, I had this really rare disease. My parents founded the charity for this disease. Like, it wasn't studied at all up until, you know, around, like, the 2000s.
What's the name of the disease?
It's called Gorham's disease, and it's also known as vanishing bones disease.
Okay.
And so you're basically... your lymphatic system's taking over your bone. So like, you know, the system that helps drain your, so it helps to like transfer fluid to your brain.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that runs all throughout your body. I don't really fully understand this stuff, but basically my bones are vanishing. And so I had a bad prognosis. I think it's like 60 to 70% of people don't make it to puberty. And then the mortality rate after that is 0%. So I was like...
You were very lucky.
Very lucky. Well, blessed, yeah. And you know, I found out later, only recently, that my mom was pretty desperate. And so I had some Pentecostals praying over me in tongues at one point. I had, you know, a full church school, Lutheran church school praying for me. One of the things that happened was this Serbian Orthodox couple offered to come to my house and pray for me. And I don't know like all the details. I'm still kind of trying to track them down. This was a long time ago. I was 4. But they, you know, anointed my door with oil, and they you know, incensed the room, and they prayed for me, and did some kind of service there. And my mom left the cross above the door, the oil cross above the door. And I only found out about that a few weeks ago.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, you know, it came up. I have no idea why, but only after I started becoming Orthodox and talking to my parents about it. But, you know, that's one thing I really credit because, you know, it really was like a scary time for me. I got sick twice, almost died twice. Oof. But it taught me to rely on others a lot. And I think it made me the person I am. What I really appreciated was going to the children's hospital. Like, have you been to a children's hospital very much?
I am unfortunately very familiar with those, yeah.
Yeah.
I had leukemia when I was a teenager, so yeah.
Oh my gosh, yeah. So then, you know, it's kind of, do you kind of have that experience? You see like, you know, you're walking around and you see it's just.
Oh yeah, it's
and everything's really colorful, but it's really. It's kind of to me, it was a good metaphor for the world. It's, you know, everything's really colorful. Yeah. They try to dress it up. They try to make it look nice. And I think that's good. But it was, you know, as a kid even, I'm like,
ultimately,
oh my gosh.
People are dying.
That kid is dying. You know, you see someone and it was just horrible. So that kind of gave me this sense of searching for meaning from a very young age. Mm-hmm. I also just grew up around all this. I think a lot of people, I think I didn't even understand that a lot of people don't really experience that, their own, I guess, coming to terms with their own death until that point that they go to, that they come to it. And I came to it at a very, very early age. I think I was 6 or 7. Oh gosh. Yeah, I think I was 7.
Just always have death in the background.
Yeah. So it was always in the background. But I had great Christian influences, especially my papa. He was a war hero. He received the Bronze Star. He should have gotten the Silver Star, but the sergeant who recommended him passed away before it was granted. Oh. And my papa didn't care. He didn't actually, really talk about his service very much. He
wasn't in it for the medals.
Yeah. He was in Vietnam, and he was Special Forces, so it was really, tough stuff that he went through. And he would talk to me about it as well. I think it's this kind of hard check of reality that really brings people to the faith. And, my papa was talking to me about that from a pretty young age, around 10. And I'm really glad he did, because he got dementia by the time I was an adult and couldn't talk. He would experience PTSD episodes, but he wouldn't be able to really talk about it truly. Oh. And so that also gave me a real sense of reality. I'm very grateful for, what I had, and that life is pretty dark. It can be pretty horrible, pretty nasty. They try to lie to you. They try to, especially when you're a kid, everything's great. You can achieve your dreams. And I had dreams and all that, but I also had this sense of, there's got to be something more to this life if things are this bad. The things my papa went through and the things he had to do were really bad. He was the only survivor of his whole squad. He didn't know anyone. And it's just hard, it's a hard thing. So, but he was a great Christian man. He came back from the war. He had a bad prognosis, but he lived way past it. He had 3 Purple Hearts. He was, hit a grenade, and he had a few AK bullets in his arm. He had no feeling in his hand. So he taught me how to be, a good Christian man, a sacrificial man. And I think that is a very important concept, is that to be a good Christian man is to be sacrificial. And so I bring this up because I think theology is really important, but these basic virtues were instilled in me by people in my life. And I think my father also had a big role in it. He grew up Jewish.
Were they religious Jewish? Or
yeah, so they were Orthodox. I think they were Orthodox Jewish growing up, and then they were just not very serious about it. And my dad, they still supported the synagogue a lot. So my dad would, he'd have get to do the fun things and all that. And he had his bar mitzvah, but it was just, to him, a lot of the things that you would imagine about, it was very classic. It was very classically, I had to do all these things when I was a kid. And underneath, I think he has some appreciation for the rituals, and that when he was a kid, if you're the one he was the youngest kid who got to read I think it was the 3 questions or 4 questions at Passover. And so he would joke about that, and that he still had them memorized because he had to do it. And I said, but wasn't it kind of nice that you got to be the one to do that? Didn't you feel good about that? And he was kind of bashful about it because he tries to be so sarcastic. Yeah. He's kind of a Larry David type Jew. Yeah. And he tried to be, bashful about it, but I think he really did like it, but he was a really brave person. He really stood up against some nasty stuff on Wall Street when he was involved with that. And he really suffered for it horribly. He lost his whole company, all of his life's work. All of our friends. My godfather, was his coworker, is one of his best coworkers, and his best friend. And he turned on my dad as well because there was just a lot of greed in that situation. And
profits over ethics.
Yeah, profits over ethics. So he always made a big deal about integrity to me growing up. He was an Ayn Rand objectivist, not so much anymore. But he really believed in doing the right thing and it coinciding with self-interest. Mm-hmm. And that just wasn't the case. So, yeah, he really suffered for that. And I mean, he was without a job for a bit, and he rebuilt his life, and that was really good. But it was a hard time for us, and it taught me. He was a whistleblower. It really taught me how hard it is to do the right thing. And as a whistleblower, he could have gotten into a big legal battle, right? So he had this whole struggle of, do I go into this legal war with these really bad people who were very powerful? They had PIs following us for days, and I saw them as a kid. That was scary. You know, like we had this house, and we see the PI across the street, and you know, like they would follow him anytime that he would leave. And it was just, that was a nasty time. But what it taught me was the sacrifice. Sometimes you have to stick up for what's right, and sometimes you have to have a certain kind of forgiveness, a certain kind of peace to yourself, as he didn't engage in that big legal battle. And that was really good, because it would have, completely torn our family apart. He'd be in depositions for years and years and years. It would never end. They would never. That's the thing about a legal battle. If you have enough money, a legal battle is never going to end. It's just never going to end.
And they don't need to be right. They just need to wear you out.
Yeah. Yeah. And we had only so much. So, he didn't go that route. And I'm really proud of him for making that choice, because he both stuck up for what he believed in, and he didn't drag his family into years and years of hell. So he didn't participate, but he didn't engage in a fruitless battle for his own ego. And so that was a really huge thing that he did that was very difficult, and taught me a lot about what humility is. And that's what ultimately I think has brought me to the Orthodox Church, is this pursuit of humility, this pursuit of living a life of obedience to God and love. Because you can't just have faith and obedience, you have to have love as well.
Absolutely.
And Orthodoxy actually giving you the content you need, right? Like, I want to be told what to do. That's what I think a lot of young men want, and I'm 25, but
you need a roadmap. I mean, everyone needs a roadmap in life.
Yeah, I'm 25, but I need a roadmap. I'm trying to figure things out, and it's difficult when there's too much gray area, when people are afraid of giving good advice to each other, because it can come across as confrontational or accusing you. Like, people get offended very easily nowadays. But I don't want that. I want someone to say, hey, you should fast, you should do this, you should do that. These are the kinds of prayers that are really good for you. These are the kinds of things that God wants you to do. And I think that is what has really drawn me to Orthodoxy, is this ability for me to exercise in humility. And when I first wanted to become Orthodox, I approached a priest, and he gave me this great advice. He said, well, Zack, your journey into Orthodoxy will be one of extreme humility. So I've taken it very slowly. I mean, when I was first on fire, I want to become Orthodox now. I want to be chrismated next week, like all this stuff, and really, really wanting to get into it. And I have gotten into it, but I've been slow and patient and humble, instead of, totally on fire and sort of thinking I'm going to change the world. I just want to change my heart. I just want God to change my heart.
That's the right attitude.
Yeah.
See, that's the only attitude that allows you to survive spiritually.
Yeah, I think so. Because this priest said that he had known a number of people who had entered the church with pride, and that it burned them up. And it was a disaster for them. It was a disaster for their church. And that's not what I want to do. So that's why, I take it slow. That's sort of my goal. But that was taught to me, I think, by my dad in sort of laying down his arms when he had the opportunity. And my papa, he retired. He was done. And he was just a really tough guy, but he'd always point out, and he'd say, like, you never want to be the guy who's bragging about how he could beat people up and all this stuff. Now, my papa was an ego lifter, and he could do 400-pound lat pull downs.
Oh, wow!
Like, he was, and he wasn't tall either. He was like a 5'7" Italian, Italian guy. classic Italian guy, and he was always trouble. You just imagine the 5'7" Italian guy. He's just huge. He was huge. I mean, he was just he was a legend to me, a living legend. But he's never about that life of like bragging or showing off, and he would tell me, he'd get into fights. He would box. But he also got into some street fights, and he'd tell me he lost. The guy was 6'3". What was he gonna do? Yeah, that's life, right?
There's only so much you could do.
Yeah.
They said 20 pounds of muscle is like one belt.
Yeah. So
you have 20 pounds of muscle on someone, it's like one belt above them.
Yeah, and that's like the biggest thing he could have done for me is be this incredibly strong powerlifting guy, but the most humble person I had ever met, who spent all of his days. After retiring, volunteering, all week, in some stuff that just he would do nothing but get in trouble. I mean, he really had no ability to work with certain. He was kind of old fashioned, I'll put it that way. So he'd work in a hospital, volunteer, and he'd point, and people would get really upset at him about that for some reason. You have to do this, and so he would always make points about that, and he was old fashioned, but he always really tried his best to apply himself. And I think that's one of the best things you could be, is really strong, really capable, and then lay that down and just be humble to the people that you're teaching, so they know that they can be that way too. Because now when I go to the gym, I don't think, my papa was this, he was that. I think, he was like me. He was, a legend, but he was like me, and he just had a different life, and he worked hard, and he didn't make it out as though he was the greatest thing in the world, and I'm never going to be like that.
In my mind, you're a legend, Zach.
Oh, thank you. Well, you're a legend in my mind.
I'm a legend when it comes to eating Costco pizza, but...
you're quite literally a legend, because, I met Denny. When... it was a few years ago. I actually met him long before I went to church.
Actually, about how we met.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was Owen up in Seattle whom I went to church with, and he said, "I have a friend down in Las Vegas." So I went down. We chatted on the phone a bit, and then some things got in the way. We weren't able to meet, and I lost track of you. And then one day, do you remember this? He came to St. John the Baptist. We started chatting.
Yeah.
And I go, Oh, you go to an Anglican church? Yeah, there's a guy I knew who I started tell you, so you go, oh, that's me.
Yeah. Yeah, me, Zack.
Oh, okay, all right. That's right. Now, okay, so you had these very excellent male role models. They taught you the importance of just being persistent in what you do, but also humble about it. In a very real way, stoic, right? Not unfeeling, but just acknowledging that this is really unfair, but ultimately I have to just take into consideration what's good for my family and move on. Your grandfather, who had PTSD, but he just accepted it. He lived this life of service after. What was your religious upbringing like? Did your father, did he convert to Christianity? Did he remain sort of secular Jewish? Your mother, was she Roman Catholic? Was she Protestant?
My mother was Lutheran. Mm-hmm. So my mother, my Nana was Lutheran. Okay. And my Papa he grew up Catholic, but they met, at a dance a day before he deployed, and then they wrote letters to each other and got married when he came back. Okay. So they were very quick to get married, and also very, very much in love with each other. It's very sweet. I have, very sweet. So my Nana told my Papa, I'm not going to do 3 things. Let's see if I can remember them all. I know the first. I'm never going to confess to a priest. That's what she said. And she's very Lutheran. Yeah. And she said, I'm never going to pray to Mary. And I think the third, gosh, I can't even remember. Those are 2 that you kind of get the idea. Yeah. My Nana is very anti-Catholic. A lot of the Midwestern Lutherans really don't like the Catholic Church. The grudge is not ended. I think there's some...
Luther has barely been laid to rest in their mind.
Yeah.
Are they Missouri Synod Lutherans?
Yes. Okay. And back in the day, it was so much more intense than it is now.
That was actually meant something. It wasn't
Yeah. Like there was like a 9/11 memorial, and I believe it was the Wisconsin Synod, but I think it was Missouri too. I don't remember. That wouldn't pray with anyone else at the 9/11 memorial. They just wouldn't do it, and like they wouldn't pray with the Catholics or the Orthodox. So they're very kind of set. And so I had a great appreciation for my Nana, but that she said that, and my papa was like, all right. And he wasn't a good Catholic. He was a bad Catholic. He grew up. He would get in trouble. He went to Catholic school. He'd get in trouble with the nuns. The nuns would say, you got to go and take care of the plants because you did this. He would go and pee on the plants. He was really a bad kid. He was just total trouble. I mean, so he really...
But he has this redemption arc.
Yeah, well, see, he...
And it's through trauma.
Yeah, of course. He goes to, Vietnam, and I think that just changed him a lot. I mean, he was still trouble after, but, not...
That's something that we forget, is that the trauma that we experience, we can, take that suffering and we can offer it up. We can look at Christ on the crucifix and say, this day I'm having, this week, this month, it's horrible. This, maybe it's a divorce they're going through. Maybe it's a renegade child. You can look at that image of Christ on the cross. You can see that suffering, and you can say, this is a suffering God that we experience, that we have. A God who co-suffers with us. You can look at his mother. You can look at like Michelangelo's sculpture, the Pieta, and you can see the sorrow in his mother's face as she sees her only child murdered in front of her. Yeah. So we have a God who's entirely relatable, and I think that's how we encounter God, is through suffering.
Yes,
that's when we're brought to humility and we're most open to God's presence.
Yeah, and so I think that kind of brought. I think that's my papa wasn't. He kind of just, church is church. Mm-hmm. He called God the Big Ranger, which I'm pretty sure is an army thing. He was in the army.
Not like Ranger Rick.
No, I think Big Ranger. I always thought it was like a cowboy thing when I was growing up. Yeah. I never asked him. I just assumed like with cows.
Yeah.
But no, I figured actually only a couple years ago that he was talking about Army Ranger, and apparently that's a thing. And they call him that because I don't know. He was just, that's what they called him, the Big Ranger, and he really emphasized sort of just faith and being loving more so than anything else. Like, I think being Lutheran was not sort of, he didn't approach it denominationally. He never like made a big deal to me about being Lutheran, or that, he never talked about Lutheran theology with me. I think he was an elder at church or something, but to him, it was just kind of more about Jesus Christ and being sacrificial and loving and all these things. But yeah, so that was kind of my mom. She was raised Lutheran, went to parochial school, and she would sort of bring me to church. We went to a few churches. Eventually we went to like a Lutheran one, and that just didn't work out. And then we went to Willow Creek, which is one of the largest mega churches in the country. It's huge. It's, thousands and thousands and thousands of people. And I didn't like it, but they had
lots of hands in the air.
Lots of hands in the air. Lots of like crazy youth programs where like they had huge parties and that kind of stuff. And I was going through a lot of stuff at the time. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I think like the last time I went, they told me that it was my job to bring my dad to Christ. Mm-hmm. And that was so bad for me. Mm-hmm. I was so stressed me out so badly that, I think it really shut me down on religion for a good bit. Mm-hmm. I didn't go to high school. I didn't have a lot of, I was a NEET. You know what a NEET is?
No.
It's not an education, it's not an education, employment, or training.
Oh, okay.
So, but from like 8th grade to senior year. Okay. So I got my GED and stuff. I was online all the time, chronically online, and I wouldn't leave my basement.
You weren't missing anything.
No, I guess not. And I mean, I had maybe that was my advantage. I had chronic pain. I just kind of, but then I, got my GED, did really well, got my ACT, and I went to college. But yeah, I sort of, my point being, my dad, I'm pressured to convert my dad, but my dad kind of was converting me. And, his way of thinking, he was very atheistic.
His Ayn Rand.
Yeah, Ayn Rand. Yeah, exactly. He actually had me read Atlas Shrugged when I was 11, which is not like appropriate literature.
Ooh.
And he was very much about the primacy of the individual. So he would say, Zack, you're 12. You're a young man now. You're becoming a young man. I'm like, oh no. So I made he gave me a long leash.
Yeah.
But that I love my dad, but that was kind of, his individualism, his Jefferson. He was also a huge fan of Jefferson. So I took on all these things, and I was like, A equals A. I didn't really like to think about religion that much, and I think when my life was really bad, I started reading the Stoics for a bit, and that very quickly brought me to Christianity. Actually, at the start, just because I wanted to meet girls, and so I was like, oh, I'll go to church, I'll meet girls, and then I found Christ there, and that was life changing for me. I found. I went to a non-denominational church in Vegas. It's gone now. And it was really, I got involved with the community. I was going to become a pastor. I went to Bible college to become a pastor. And yeah, so growing up, it was religion was very frowned upon, especially sort of religion specifically. So I went to a non-denominational church, and they say, Christianity is not a religion, which is, I've heard, Abbot Tryphon say that as well, and some other people, and it's kind of true in a sense, but they were like, that means you never repeat anything once unless it's a song. Yeah. And then if it's a song, I'm not going to get into that, but yeah, we'll run the chorus a bunch and all that. It's just seemed very hypocritical to me after a while. And I read C.S. Lewis, and he opened the whole world to me.
Which of his works did you find to be
the best?
The one that you would recommend to people who want to get into C.S. Lewis?
For people who want to get into C.S., people really like Screwtape. I love Screwtape as well. Yeah. Screwtape's very good. And it's good because he really thought like a demon. Yeah, my favorite trivia about Screwtape, I think he openly says this in the prologue to his epilogue for it, that he couldn't keep doing it because of how dark of a place he went to when he wrote Screwtape.
Yeah, for people watching who don't know, because Screwtape Letters it's effectively like a letter of an older demon advising a younger demon on how to tempt people, and it's a glimpse into human psychology and how you start to see your own faults in it, that you become annoyed about these little things. You go, oh, okay, this is demonic. What's going on? Just turn it off. That's really what it is. It's actually in an odd way a relatively encouraging book, because you're getting to see how demons work on you temptation wise. It's very non-assuming, non pretentious man wrote it.
Yeah, and it's very addictive because the demons seem very weak in it in a way, and you see that they're not all powerful, because that's kind of the fear I think people begin to have when they're afraid of demons, is that what can they not do? If I can't see them, they're in the air, they do all these things to me. They could make me sick, they could make me think bad things, but the way he describes how they tempt you helps prepare you and also give you the comfort of knowing they're deluded. Demons are very deluded creatures. They're not all powerful, and they're not smart, in a lot of ways. They have a craft, but they themselves are the victims of a great delusion. And prisoners to their own evil. So that is one of the greatest comforts of the Screwtape Letters to me. And it was one of the first books I read from him. Mere Christianity, You Can't Go Wrong. It's like a crash course in virtue ethics, first and foremost.
Right. And he starts with the proof for God as our concept of justice and fairness.
Yes.
That's his basis for he builds from there.
Yes, exactly. And so I fell in love with C.S. Lewis. Mm. And so after... I spent a bit of time at Bible college, and the program was kind of devolving as I was there. The former head of the biblical college, the dean, was passing away, and a new one was in place who hard to talk about. She would like say she hated David and all these horrible things. And she was very, very progressive, and it was bad. So I moved away from that.
And this is typically what you find when you start to move females into positions of authority, is they will focus on the 2%, the 3% who are marginalized at the expense of everyone else. It's this misdirected maternal nature.
Yes.
And they will tear apart everything to try and account for like the weak, whoever the baby is in the situation. It's very, very odd.
Yes, and in a lot of ways, women sort of have this sway over morality in general, and no one wants to. One, it creates sort of a sense of novelty that they're the only ones who are going to say it. So, like, this was my biggest issue
Can you
in Bible.
that?
Yeah, my biggest issue is in academia in general. Like my years in Bible college, I still had a Bible minor.
Mm-hmm.
Was this sense that if you can say something new, you're tremendously rewarded in the academy.
Mm-hmm.
And at some point, there's not a whole lot that's new to say about the Bible. I mean, that's why it's, unless you're a saint, right? And like these saints, it's incredible. They say these things, it's always the same lesson in a way, but it's in a new format. And C.S. Lewis says that like we don't invent new morality, we just remind ourselves. We need all these reminders all the time, and that's why we do what we do, why we write books, why we do all this stuff, is because we need to be reminded about right and wrong, but we don't need to invent new right and new wrong. Okay. But that's the focus of the academy in English literature and biblical studies, is sort of this novelty. So if you want to say something, revolutionary about Moby Dick, why don't you interpret it all as like a racial allegory or something like that? And that is just inescapable. Especially, I'm an English major in English literature. Is this concept that if you really want to write something substantial, there's so many people doing this, and your PhD has to be unique. It has to be that you end up saying something that's a good idea but clearly wrong. And that's basically the goal of a lot of PhDs in the academy and humanities, is how do I say something that's clearly not true but make it sound like a great idea, or like my own great ideas that just aren't true, but what if it is a racial allegory? I read it that way.
What if we interpreted Moby Dick through the lens of a trans, non-binary,
queer, feminist dance?
Well, I was gonna say that too. I was gonna say what if we interpret it through the lens of like a trans, non-binary, disabled, black female midget? It's just. It's intersectionality gone awry.
Oh, and Moby Dick is my favorite book, and there's it's so victimized. I was so excited to go to a lecture on Moby Dick, and it was just Absolutely. It was by someone who was writing the new Norton Critical Edition. It's a big deal to write the Norton Critical, or edit it, I guess.
And someone just massacred it.
They massacred it. I raised my hand to ask a question at the end in like a vain hope that I get something interesting. Yeah. The old chair who was there was just, he was like trying to save the whole thing. He's trying to, you can see this, they're trying to justify like this isn't that bad as it is. And he's like this old guy. He's really, really a nice guy, but he's trying to, push her to talk about things that have nothing to do with race or gender or something. And it was just nothing. And I asked a question. It was about, I think, Pip, the relationship between Pip and Ahab. And she said, well, you probably already heard a lot about something super interesting that I wanted to hear about. Let me get into the race and gender of Pip. And it's like, are you kidding me? I know I hadn't heard about that. That's why I'm at the lecture. I want to hear more about it. It's my favorite book. And it was just very disappointing. So I found that in the academy with biblical studies was even worse. And what I found was that you can argue pretty much anything about the Bible. It's like, it's so bad. The state of scholarly literature, especially when you include the Masoretic text, is just, it's abysmal, and you can't argue, you can't like make great arguments. My whole school is founded from the Reconstructionist movement, and the point is we're going to go back to the early church, 70 AD, and like really try to reconstruct how early Christians worship by reading the Bible in a scholarly way, the Joseph Campbell movement. And it's impossible. It's you know, it really gave me this whole what is truth sense. I felt like Pontius Pilate. Like, you know, you could argue, my example I use, and there's so many. There's the verse where Jesus says, if you give someone, I think it's food and something to drink, who's your enemy, you'll pour hot coals on their head.
Oh, the book of James, yeah.
Yeah, or that's in James. Okay, thank you. No, I think that's in... Yeah, okay. Well, regardless, this verse can be taken to be you're literally pouring hot coals on their head, as in you're tripping up their conscience, which will either be very painful for them now or very painful for them later. Or it can mean, and this scholarly article argued it, it's an extension of the hospitality. You carried hot coals on your head. And how do you disprove that? How do you disprove that? And you're completely changing the nature of the verse. Now, actually, no, it's not about bad things happening to people. It's about, and it's like, well, that's a good idea, I guess. I mean, well, that's very creative. But is it really, are we really learning anything, or are you just spreading confusion? Because now, how do I argue against that?
Well, it's like the turn the other cheek. It's, you know, I had a professor tell me that it was actually a show of defiance to turn your other cheek. And it's like, this is a nice pet theory when taken in isolation. It does not fit with the rest of the gospel. You know,
yeah.
So much of scholarship now is completely fallen apart. You know, the best scholarship that we had was probably, you know, what made it through in the 50s, 60s, you know, maybe up into the 70s. A lot of those people who were heavily trained in classical literature, and they had that solid basis. And when they came to the fore, you know, when they were in their late 40s, through their 50s, which is when professors actually do their best work, is their late 40s into their 50s. They were, you know, by the time those guys who had grown up in this very, you know, at least on the surface, rooted culture, it was the 60s, it was the 70s that they came to aid, that they were doing their best work at that period. They were in their 50s then. And after that, I mean, you're really struggling for anything good.
Yeah.
You can find it, it's there, but you have to dig through a lot of, like, you know, drawing parallels between, you know, the whale and Moby Dick and, you know, some Disney film in light of whatever bizarre, you know, autistic dwarfs. It's horrible.
A neurodivergent critical reading of Moby Dick and the whale as the specter of autism in 1870s Melvillian culture. Maybe throw in Polynesian in there. Yeah, I like that. Yeah, because you have Queequeg, right? And he goes in. Through the lens of non-divergent Polynesian, neurodivergent Polynesian Ramadans. You know, the Polynesian marginalized voices in Polynesian society. It's like it's the most surface level. Like, yeah, obviously, it's you're not even. I mean, you're like cutting out everything else. It's just. And Moby Dick is hard because there's a whole chapter called The Whiteness of the Whale. Can you imagine the literature written about the whiteness of the whale? Oh, man. So let's go to, I mean, you ended up, so from this, you go through this sort of path of spiritual seeking, and you end up in an Anglican church. Yeah, so my second semester, you know, things aren't going well, and I'm having a hard time in Bible college. I don't enjoy it. I'm not thinking I'm going to be good pastor material. You know, like if you go in the Bible college track, you're really basically a youth pastor, which is the first thing you do, but perhaps the most delicate job in the whole world is like pastoring the youth, you know, like actually, and catechizing them. and that's your job as a 21-year-old. By the time you're 21, you're a youth pastor, and you're like interning at a church, and this was happening, and I knew it would happen. I didn't get that far. So my second semester, I switched to English literature. I had some wonderful, very liberal professors who supported me. They're kind of liberal, but they would what's the word? I guess tolerate me. They're very tolerant. I mean, we got into some heated moments, but for the most part, I had a great relationship with them till the end, because I wanted to write, real criticism, real, like, scholarly, I guess real, I don't know, scholarship. I didn't want to write critical theory. I had to do some of it. That was very interesting. But I had joined this class called Prayer and Contemplation. Actually, part of this class was very interesting, was going to Orthodox liturgy twice, because this professor was a big fan of it. He's like, they really have preserved this pretty well. And so from a historical perspective.
Was this one of the left-wing professors?
He's in the middle, and he was an interesting character, actually. But he had us the first day sign this spiritual covenant, and it had all these rules on it, and I just knew there's no way. It was part of the class because it's prayer and contemplation. Yeah. He said, this is a unique opportunity for you to prayer journal and do all these things that I fought really hard to have this class, and he did. But I just sat down, I saw this covenant, and I was like, there's no way I'm doing this. I'm not going to be on my phone for like 30 minutes a day. At the time, I still had a lot of online friends. I still do. I mean, I had a lot of online friends, and 8 of them were my groomsmen. So like they're really close friends with mine. I wouldn't be able to talk to them for 4 months. And I just wasn't having a good time in college anyway. So it was not something I felt comfortable doing. And there were all these other rules that I thought were pretty ridiculous. And I just wouldn't be able to do them. So I said, I'm not going to sign this. I'm just going to drop the class. I dropped the class, now I'm behind in college, whatever. I'll suffer through that. It's not worth putting my name on something I won't do. Well, everyone else just, of course, they're, they put their name on it, but they weren't going to do it. But then they went and did this assignment, which was to have communion in their room. And I was invited to it because I was kind of friends with them. And it was horrible. It was one of the worst moments of my life. It was really a low point of my whole life. I love these people.
Well, on top of it, how old were you at this point?
I was 19.
As a male, 19, 20, 21 are the worst years of your life.
Yeah.
No matter what is going on.
Yeah.
So you were already at a very low point.
I think they had Christian lo-fi on in the background. They had, it gets worse. They had like homemade bread that tasted, I think it was like pumpkin bread. Oh my God. It was like clearly flavored. I think it was pumpkin bread. They had grape juice, and and then like we sit down. So I'm.
Was this like pumpkin spice communion?
Yeah, well, they made it themselves. So we did that. We all sat down in a circle, and they said the thing like and this is the body, etc., etc.
This is the body in symbol only.
Yeah. Well, and up to this point, I'm just like, this is strange.
Meanwhile, lo-fi just playing in the background.
Yeah.
The smell of pumpkin wafting through the
air. And then we get to the point where, like, we're actually eating it, and they're just shooting the shit the whole time. And one of them, they say, "Oh, this blood tastes so good. Hey, this bread is awesome." And I'm like, "This body is delicious, yo." It's like, I just couldn't believe how bad I was agog at the whole thing. Not to be prideful, because I definitely could have done that. I'm a jokester myself, and I just
do you still talk to these people?
God didn't give me that opportunity. I could totally do that too.
Do you still talk to these people?
No, I don't. But
I'd like to know how they're doing now. This is what.
Yeah, well, I mean, some of them are pastors, and I know them on Facebook. But yeah, some of them are pastors. They're definitely.
This is 4 years ago, roughly?
Yes, it was 4 years ago. And so, yeah, they're like making these jokes. And the worst part, and the part I remember the best, because I was so offended that my ears were ringing. I was so upset about this whole thing. Because you have people like just openly mocking the sacrament. And one of them, he's a musician. He starts playing guitar. He's like, guys, isn't this so nice? And he starts trying to get serious about it and sentimental, like, we're all here together with Jesus. And someone interrupts him and just starts laughing and joking. And he totally, and then he sets the guitar down and he starts joining in. It was like the most disappointing. I was just sitting there and I left. I just walked up and said, I got to go. And I was really so badly upset by this. But up to this point, I had never cared about communion that much. I mean, it was like, this is a way to remember Jesus. I was like, why am I so offended?
Yeah.
Like so badly offended. I felt sick. Like it ruined my week. I was like, I just felt so sick about it. And that's actually what drove me to investigate the Anglican Church.
Oh, wow.
Was because I realized, why would I have such strong feelings about something if it's just a memorial, if it's just this way of like honoring, but it has no like sacramental meaning in itself. It's not sacred. It's just a thing we do. Why am I so offended, like so sick about this? And so that led me to try Anglican Church. You could go to an ACNA church, it was a wonderful church.
And can you, ACNA, Anglican Church of North America. So this is at least a more relative to the Episcopal Church, a more conservative version. Of Anglicanism. But
the story is the story is basically that they split in 2008, and then all of these elements that had already split before then, many of them joined up. So the REC was the Anglican Church I was confirmed into, and they split off in the 1890s.
Oh, Reformed Episcopal Church?
Yes.
I actually knew a guy who had been a pastor up in Seattle who converted to Reformed Episcopal.
Yes, they're very... now, the irony of it, and this freaks me out, is they really have like an extremely Reformed statement of faith when they left, and I think it was the 1890s, and now they're infamously the most Anglo-Catholic group on the West Coast. And then the further east you go, the less so. But starting around Texas, they're fairly Anglo-Catholic. And
for those who don't know, who are listening, can you, in 30 seconds or less, because I don't want to distract from the rest of the story, what is an Anglo-Catholic?
So Anglo-Catholics, they range from people who believe in pretty much everything about Catholicism except the Pope, to people who just want high church. And so you can't say that much about it, but they generally, what unites them is a desire for a high liturgy, and rejection of like female priests, which was a thing in the ACNA, among other things. But that's the primary element is a desire for a high churchmanship, prayer to saints usually, sometimes not, but yeah, they're governed by more so the ritual than the theology, other than not wanting female priests.
Tied to the Oxford movement.
Yeah, to the Oxford movement, right, yeah. So,
people like John Henry Newman.
Yeah, who became a Catholic, yeah.
Yeah, became a Catholic,
and yes. So I really, I had a good appreciation for that. That brought me to, now I went during COVID, so it was outside, but it was really nice. It kind of gradually brought me into the sacramental life, and they had a lot of respect for the sacrament.
And you were about 19, 20 at this time?
Yeah, I was 19. And yeah, I eventually was confirmed, and I went to another church when I moved back to Vegas. Went to college in California, came back, and they were Anglo-Orthodox actually. So
what?
This is not a common term, Anglo-Orthodox. So it's exactly what it sounds like. It's just Anglicans who believe a lot of Orthodox things. So we were told to read, this suggested study Bible. It was the Orthodox Study Bible.
Okay.
My priest was a big fan of praying to saints and all these other things. And now a lot of Anglican priests sort of have certain theological bents, but they always veer towards the middle, because within our church we had a lot of people who sort of believed different things. We had some Reformed people. We had some people who came from a Catholic background, probably more Catholic or less because of that.
How would you, Reformed, of course, Keep in mind, a lot of people watching, they have really
right.
no background in religion.
Right. So Reformed is Calvinism, or like the belief that you don't. The essence of it is the belief in like God's total sovereignty to determine who is saved and who is not. So like the belief in double predestination, that some people are destined before they were born to go to hell and other people to heaven, along with I think some other beliefs about covenant, but not in the Anglican context. In the Anglican context, we still have bishops and all that. And I was very happy about that. So what was important to me was that eventually, as I learned more, was I'm in a church that has an unbroken line of succession from the apostles. We didn't have any female bishops in our lineage. We didn't have anything crazy going on. Like, we actually had that real line of succession. The Anglican orders are invalid according to the Catholic Church. Orthodox, as far as I was told, it's not even a question that's really talked about, so I don't think about it. At that time, it was very important to me that I had that apostolic succession, and that's why I stayed Anglican. What was hard was actually, learning about the Western Rite and about all the compromises that were made. For those of you who don't know, the Western Rite is it's very small. It's like, I think it's 100 churches in America, maybe less.
Yeah, I think the
70.
Antiochian Archdiocese has like 30-ish.
Yeah, it's small.
And anyone, if I'm wrong on this, please post in the comments.
Yeah, it's very small. And it's small, but I was sent an interview with Father John Fenton.
Yeah.
And that was very revelatory to me. I just was always taught, well, the Eastern Orthodox, they're right about everything. I wasn't taught this necessarily, but this was my conclusion because I had Orthodox friends. And I think that's why a lot of people convert. I have to credit Jet and Owen, two really good friends of mine, who brought me to Orthodoxy and walked me. They never were pushy, ever. It's so important. And they respected my Anglican faith. And they sort of found commonality with me, but they would always sort of talk to me about Orthodoxy, and I followed Abbot Tryphon a lot. And so I had a lot of good influences, but I just figured, well, the Orthodox are right about everything, and they're in a much healthier state, but we are the Western Church. So we're the Anglican movement is the authentic Western Church, and they're the authentic Eastern Church, and we have more heresy, but that is true throughout history. Like, there were times in with certain heresies where I think the East was captured by some heresy or another, and the West was not. And then there were reverse times. But what really sort of snapped it into vision for me was all these compromises that were made. And the Western Rite prayer book they have a Book of Common Prayer, which is a very Anglican thing, that is... It's called St. Tikhon's, and it's a lot of the language. I mean, the whole thing is adapted from the Book of Common Prayer.
It's a very disjointed service.
Yes.
It's very disjointed, yeah.
But it was to me, proof that because I was just shocked. I was shocked that they had, because the Book of Common Prayer that they adapted was originally written, a lot of these prayers by Cranmer, who's Reformed, who's not,
yes.
Anglo-Catholic or Catholic or Orthodox. He's very Reformed. And that was fascinating to me, that they were willing to make these huge compromises. Say, okay, you could still be Western. You can still do Latin stuff. You could still do, the daily office as you guys have done it for how many hundreds of years. These are the things that the Orthodox Church has always taught. And I guess in the ACNA, there's this desire to compromise a lot.
Yeah, a friend of mine who was in the Episcopal Church, he describes it as Anglicans are very good at just brushing things under the rug. And at a certain point, you just have all these things you've brushed under the rug.
Yes.
And it's, if we're a polite society, we just ignore things, is how it is. And the reason why you see the Anglican Church really go off the rails is, in my opinion, if no one wants to be confrontational, things just go off the rails. And that's why when I see people going, oh, you Orthodox people, you're so confrontational, you have these really confrontational personalities online, and it's like, yeah, that's good.
Mm-hmm.
That's good. That keeps people in line. Someone has to be obnoxiously rude.
Mm-hmm.
And being rude is very culture bound. But someone has to be confrontational. You can't always do I'm going to be very polite and I'm just going to, we'll just give them a sideways glance and, they'll figure it out and they'll adjust their behavior. Well, that just sets you up for failure when you're dealing with people who are effectively sociopaths.
Yes.
And sociopaths aim right for positions of authority. They go straight for it. And I just see this, with Anglican society. It's such polite society tradition.
Very polite, yeah.
Very nice, very considerate. It's very much born of a homogenous society, and it fails miserably in a multicultural society.
It's very difficult because, like I said, I wanted to become Orthodox out of humility. I want to be obedient. But it's hard to be obedient when you could be anything. When they actually encourage you to decide for yourself what's true and what's not. And I don't want to do that. So I was asked once, well, when you were Anglican, what was or it wasn't when I was Anglican, it was, what do you think about, I forget, it was some theological issue. And my answer is usually, well, what does the church say? And I don't want to, why does my opinion matter, right? Even if I feel a certain way. And sometimes this is the case, right? So, I might feel like, oh, well, this can't be true, this isn't right. But that doesn't mean I'm right. So that's humility, submitting in spite of those feelings, and eventually the feelings go away. And you learn, oh, well, there's actually a reason for this wall to be built. There's actually a reason that we do this thing.
Correct.
Right? And I think that's the experience of a lot of people who come to Orthodoxy. And I found in the Anglican Church, that was a problem, is that confrontation is not handled, and there are a lot of brave and noble people, especially a lot of my leaders, who were fighting for sort of a confrontation to happen. So the ACNA is stuck in this situation with women's ordination. It's a disaster for them because then you have your own diocese not in communion with each other, and really, the belief of, if you believe in women's ordination, right? And you're a female priest. Let's say you're a female priest, and you're giving communion to people.
In this house, we call female priests Jezebels.
If you're a priestess, if you're
Jezebel, yeah, okay.
If you're a priestess, even a well-meaning one, and you're not valid, you're giving, what does that mean about the sacrament, right? What is this? How can you share communion with people in that situation? And the Archbishop really kind of brought that to light as an issue, because he attended this. I don't want to get into the drama of it. But that's kind of the issue. Is I know a lot of noble people who are pushing for a more confrontational strategy in Anglicanism to settle the women's ordination problem, and it's just difficult because no one wants to fight, that's not. Yeah.
I know, I believe it was the ACNA years ago was talking to the OCA, Orthodox Church in America, about joining up. And I think one of the key issues was the OCA said, we don't have married bishops.
Oh, yeah. I could see that to be a big problem.
Which, in my opinion, if you ask me, we allowed married bishops up into the late 7th century. I don't have a problem with it. It doesn't bother me. I do think it's a sort of odd hill for us to die on.
Well, the filioque was also a problem. If you open a 2019 ACNA prayer book, the filioque is in brackets. It's the most Anglican thing you've ever seen. I love it. I kind of love it.
Yeah.
It's very funny because you have a little, it's like "and the sun" in actual brackets with a dagger asterisk, with a footnote saying "read the resolution that we've come to," and it's a very fence-sitting one. So I don't think they've quite gotten rid of the filioque yet either. And that's a big issue.
Where do you think the ACNA is headed? I mean, are they just gonna slowly atrophy away and be a few parishes? Are they going to join with Catholicism? Are they going to really? I mean, from what I understand, effectively, any sort of dialogue with the Orthodox Church is dead. And so it's a matter of, if individuals want to come over, great. If clergy want to come over, great. But we're not going to keep trying to discuss with you guys as a group. And that left a very bad taste in the Anglicans' mouths. But it was necessary because the talks were going nowhere.
And I think I don't know I hope the ACNA is headed to whatever the best option is for them. So I don't have like an opinion, but I think they're the sort of thing to watch, and what will determine the future is the fact that Anglicans, for better or worse, and I think mostly for better, are very faithful to their bishops. And
oh, really?
Yes. So I think that is perhaps, and then the bishops are very faithful to the archbishop for the most part.
Okay.
And that is a sort of a key thing to understand, and why I think it's hard to do anything right now, and why there's such a lockup, because I don't think, I'm surprised when I hear like if an Anglican church leaves the ACNA or leaves their diocese. I know one who left their diocese, and it made a lot of sense to me. But it was actually just, it's always a matter of the bishop's relationship with the priest. And so I think in a lot of the better dioceses, you kind of have this thing. It's kind of similar to Catholicism, where often sort of a more traditional mindset also comes with a strong loyalty to the Pope. So you have this sort of duality where an ACNA church that leaves their bishop, that's just, even to me, it makes me feel a little sick, just because of my how I was taught. Mm-hmm. Because the bishop is really, when the bishop, we treat him like a prince, he's like a really, and I think the Orthodox do the same thing. Mm-hmm. Is, the bishop is someone you treat with a lot of respect. So abandoning your bishop, it seems unfeasible to me in the Anglican churches I was in, aside from the bishop abandoning you, which of course happened in the Episcopalian church, and why there was a lot of splitting, or the bishop doing something, that's bad. So I don't know, but I if I had a feeling, it's that dioceses will stick together, and it's possible to just have more continuing Anglicans, there's already a bunch of groups like that, continuing Anglican churches.
What is the continuing Anglican movement versus, say, the ACNA versus?
They split off in the 70s for the most part. So they split off in the 70s because of women's ordination. And so they have varying sort of, I guess, what's the word, theologies, but they generally were united in that. The problem being, once you split off, it's so hard to go back. Or once you ordain a woman, it's hard to change that. Once you have a priestess, a
Jezebel.
Yeah, or that. You don't want to. You don't want to hurt people's feelings. People hate hurting people's feelings.
Oh, I don't. No, I love it.
Yeah, well, that's the Anglican way, and I still have that politeness to myself. Okay. I don't want to hurt someone's feelings. I don't want to be the one to tell them, hey, you're not a real priest. You're doing something horrible in the eyes of the Lord, all this stuff. Yeah. It's who wants to be the one to say that? And so that's really the issue.
I'll say it.
People hate giving up power. I was just reading a book. It's Gaijin by Clavel. And one of the last things that's said is that an empress never removes herself from power willingly.
Oh yeah, this is why you don't give the 51%ers any power to begin with.
I think there's like one organization that I know of that has changed from women priests to not, maybe two, and one of them is like the Romanian Lutherans. Oh. It's very small. It's like it's hard to do. It's so hard to do.
Yeah, once the cat is out of the bag. Ultimately what happens is with these groups that get female clergy, they just atrophy away. Because the fact is, and this goes back to why are there no female priests? Now, I have sisters, I have daughters, I am surrounded by women. And that's a very wonderful thing because women are very loving, they're very caring. They take very excellent care of me. I'm very spoiled by my wife and my daughters. That being said, you hear this like, well, priests can only be males because Jesus Christ was a male. It's like, well, Jesus Christ was also an Israelite male. Do you have to be an Israelite as well?
Yeah.
There are many, what you might call, personal aspects of Christ that, are these requirements also? Why stop at male? Mm-hmm. I think the real reason why we don't have female priests is just the very practical reason that women do not get along with each other. And they really do not get along with women who are in positions of authority over them. And women are very content with having a male over them so long as it's not another woman. Yeah. But the other thing is that, the role of a female in society, like the most important job that you can have in society is the rearing of new citizens. And that's what women do. They create new citizens.
It'd be hard to imagine having a priest who's a mother. That's one point that can be made.
Okay, there is that, right? It's also that I think women, well, actually, I know women have a very hard time just going, look, you're cut off. Women tend to enable through their nurturing nature. They have a very hard time just being like, it's done. Axe them. And so that's hence why you see we need to screw over everyone to save the 2%, the 3%. These are the babies who need to be loved. They need to be surrounded by my love. I can't bear them suffering. Whereas men are like, this isn't financially feasible, axe it. But, the most important job in society, going back to this, is the rearing of new citizens. And that's what women do. And that is, in a very real way, their, you might say, version of the priesthood, right? Is that they take this child and offer this child to society. They offer it up. That's their sacrifice, is the rearing of this child and offering them to society as something productive. And it's amazing to me that we have psyoped women. We've psyoped women into thinking that sitting in some corporate cubicle hellhole, having meetings about a meeting to plan for the next meeting, is somehow superior to the most important job in society, the rearing of new citizens. Yeah. That is just absolutely beyond bizarre to me.
It's about power, I think, and it's the lust for power to be the one who makes the money and then gets to make the choices, and the abuse of that in history maybe, but I don't know. It baffles me why this is any better. It's
well, here's the thing: when you go into these traditional societies, like I lived in the Middle East for years, what you learn really quickly is that the women there, they're not pushovers, not even close. Women in Mediterranean societies, women in traditional societies in general, they know that you wield power by being behind the scenes. They're the ones that are in control. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, you look at like Italian women or Greek women, like these women are very, very comfortable in the position that they're in. They're not these subjugated humans. Even with Arabs, they're not these subjugated types. I think I know our problem is the fact that we have tried to make women equal to men by trying to make them men. And guess what women are going to fail at? It's at being men. And most men can't even be men. But whenever you expect women to play on a field with men against men at men's games, they're going to fail miserably. And then they just become a laughingstock to men. And that's what's happened. Yeah, that's exactly what's happened.
It's very interesting because bringing C.S. Lewis back into this, he talks about women and men and the difference between the two. And it's interesting because he was not married at this point, not even close. He's a forever bachelor until his old age. And so I guess not a forever bachelor. He was a bachelor, like a classic Oxford bachelor, who read books literally 12 hours a day, But he nailed it, that women are inherently favored to their in-group, and men are generally more fair. Men want to... the example he uses is if your neighbor's dog bites, or if your dog bites the neighbor's kid.
Do you want to talk to the father or to the mother? Yeah, I remember that.
Yep, and it's 100% going to be the father.
Yeah, it's every time. Yeah, I've watched again and again and again as feminists who it's all about believe every woman. It's okay until all of a sudden it's their son who's accused.
Yeah.
Then it's that woman, she was begging for it. She was asking for it. Do you know her reputation? All the things that they condemned are suddenly fair game for them to go after. Why? Because it's my baby. Now think of what my baby is for most women. It's the illegals.
Yeah.
Right?
Or anything else.
It's the teenager who shot that innocent girl. It's the marginalized type.
Or the church. You know?
Yeah. It's this out of control empathy.
Yes.
And it's, yeah, you just can't allow women into positions of authority because they deconstruct everything to try and make it palpable and acceptable to the 2%. And every group has to have borders. You have to have an in-group and an out-group in order to have an actual group to begin with. And if you don't have a group, well, you have no social network.
I think it's about positions of authority that have a high demand of being confrontational, fair, and especially ones that interact with outgroups. So, foreign policy, like, so to speak. And so there's a lot of positions where women sort of are an authority, right? And it's okay because it's a nurturing authority, right? And so, who doesn't want a mom who's nurturing and raises you well and all these things? Or, I've heard of spiritual mothers and these kinds of things that help to continue to teach you to be a good person, right? And to be nice and kind. And men need that because, otherwise they're not very nice.
Yeah.
And, that's when you, like you said, when you kind of remove the in-group, and that's what's happened, is that they don't even have one. They're going to find one. And so it might be the church. They might view the church as sort of their flock, and they want to nurture their flock. And it comes from that place of disorder, not necessarily, it's not a cruel intention, or maybe it's not even a lust for power. It's just a desire to take care of people. And sometimes to take care of people, you have to do things that are very painful to them.
Yeah.
And that's not easy. That requires a certain level of testosterone, I guess.
Yeah.
And that's not
just shutting off the emotions and doing it.
Yeah. Yeah. And that
you got to amputate a leg. There's no anesthesia.
Yeah.
The other option is a crushed leg. All right, just turn off the emotions and do it.
Yeah.
Not that I could do that. I don't like blood.
Yeah, I mean it's but there are things. Exactly. Yeah.
Mine would just be
people have different skills.
Yeah, mine would just be not vomiting while seeing it. Like the crying and the shouting wouldn't matter. It'd be the blood. It's like puking,
But I mean, some women, they have this immense tolerance for that kind of thing in a way, because they're like, historically they go through childbirth and all these things. Absolutely. And all this disgusting. So that's kind of their forte. It's like people have different abilities, and so it's not about better or worse. And I'm not the first person to say that. It's very cliche, but that's the problem, is that it's seen as better to be the person who goes to war, does this, or makes big decisions. About making decisions is responsibility. It's not really power. It's not really like some kind of enviable way to grow yourself. Usually it's sacrificial, and they don't view it that way. So it's a tough thing.
Or the glorification of the corporate cubicle hellhole in which you're having meetings about meetings to plan for a meeting and move this data from one spreadsheet to another. There's a tweet on X, and after this I want to get into how you met your lovely wife.
Yeah.
There's a tweet on X that said, it's not that AI is wiping out jobs per se. It's that so many of these corporate jobs were never real to begin with, and AI is just exposing that. And my limited experience in corporate work was, it's just meetings and meetings and meetings. How many of them can just be wiped off the map? So many of these meetings, the decision was already made.
Yeah.
It can just be handled to send out an email.
Well, I was in a meeting. I'm working with my dad on something. and he's leading this project. It's kind of a startup. I can't go into any details.
That's fine.
But the interesting thing was I didn't understand really the value of leadership or what it meant until I was in these meetings and people are talking, the expert, you have like the intern, you have me, I'm basically just doing all the marketing material, all this stuff. And I realized that what my father did was everyone would look to him, they want to do something, but they're all terrified. They don't want to take responsibility for the decision or the direction or whatever.
Who's going to be caught holding the ball?
Yeah. So my dad, that's not all my dad does, or any good CEO would do. But it's a big part of it is taking responsibility for decisions, which a lot of people really don't want to do because you can really put things in jeopardy. And so you need one person who's like who's sort of the super authority, who knows a little bit about everything and can make a decision for a direction and then take responsibility for the failure, not the underlings.
Yes.
And that's kind of, I think, the whole entrepreneurial dream is when you're that kind of person who can do that. And you have to be a very confident person. But I don't know. I wonder if women are worse at that. It's a tough thing to do. It takes It takes like serious confidence in yourself and in your team's ability to produce and all these things and take risks.
Well, and there's also, touching on that point, there's also this fallacy we have that, well, if one man can do it, another man can. It's like, no.
Yeah.
Very, very few, a very small percentage of males are actually the leaders and the decision makers. You can't, you need a lot of Indians and only a few chiefs.
Yeah. Exactly.
And when you look at the bell curve of behaviors, it's like a friend of mine points out, the most violent and the most pacifistic people you will ever meet are males. The dumbest and the most intelligent people you meet are males. The most, the funniest and the most serious you'll meet are males. There's such a variance.
Highest and lowest IQ as well.
Yeah, it's such a variance in behaviors that you find with males. It's only a very small portion of males. But the other thing I find is that males tend to function well in setting up systems, and that immediately it's just a hierarchy is, without being said, just established, and that males are very at ease with that hierarchy shifting based on the situation they're in.
Yes.
And males are also very comfortable with just going, well, he knows more than me. I don't need to know.
Yeah.
Whereas with females, there's a lot of need to make people feel safe, because that's when you're raising a very small child. Well, you need someone who can make someone feel safe.
Yes.
Small children, sarcasm is really not good to use against small kids.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
It's comedy is very destabilizing. So this is why typically mothers are very concerned about creating safety, making the child feel very loved.
And the HR department.
Yeah, well, there you go, right? You said something about the autistic. Anyway, I'm not even going to get into that.
It's like the whole, our whole legal system. My wife, she works as a social worker, and a caseworker. And so she has just a horrible job, but she works with a lot of homeless people, a lot of stuff like that. And she calls me and she says, I have this coconut protein bar, and there's this homeless guy. He says he only eats every other day. He's one of my clients. He's really not doing well. I want to give him the bar, but I'm worried that he's going to sue us if he has an allergy attack.
Yeah.
And so that's the kind of, I feel like this kind of,
your wife is an extremely gentle person.
But also, that's a very nurturing society, isn't it? Where you can sue. I don't think you could. I told her I wouldn't worry about that. I don't think he can afford the lawyer, and I don't think they would take the case. So that's, well, yeah, but it's, you got to take some risks to do nice things to people sometimes, and that's just one of them. But the whole society of nurturing people to the point where they can sue you for giving you food. That's like insane, sort of creating justice within the in-group. It's like, are you kidding me? That's not, there's no justice there. You have to take some L's in life. Someone gave you a protein bar and you had an allergy attack. But
how did you meet your wife?
I met her in college. So actually it was COVID happened, and I was sent home. I was sort of trying to get with. I was actually introduced to her. So this is the number one thing, is that I had an older friend. He was maybe 28 or something like that, 29. And he introduced me to her because I was looking for a girl. And he said, well, I know Kelsey. She's great. She's really funny. You'll love her. And so I kind of tried to get with her a few times. The first time I actually saw her, though, was before that. And, she was in history class, and she thought I was a PK, if you know what a PK is.
A preacher's kid.
Yeah, she thought I was like a really, really crazy preacher's kid because I was very popular at the time. I knew how to joke around, or as young people would say, jester. Like, I was very good at it.
I forgot that term.
Jester. Yeah, I knew how to jester. Yeah. So I was very popular, and I was also very happy-go-lucky. So, I approached her. I was going to bring up, I thought she was Chinese. She's Japanese. So her whole family's Japanese. I thought she was Chinese. And I was actually, one of the other things that influenced me a lot growing up was this book I read called Ghost Soldiers. And it sounds unserious because the title is just crazy, but it was a very serious account of what the Japanese did to POWs in the war. And so I had this horrible impression of Japan all of my childhood because, I read things that would get this video demonetized or something, so I'm not going to bring it up. But, if you look into this book, the things the Japanese did to the POWs and the American POWs and to Filipinos especially, just horrible. The Bataan Death March. Oh, yeah. So I had this horrible impression. I was like, and she was reading this book about China, so I thought she was Chinese. And I was going to bring that up because I wasn't that good, That would not be a good opener. Thankfully, I didn't do that for some reason. But I vividly remember having that thought of bringing that up as an icebreaker because we're in history. And thank God I didn't. Hey, how about those war crimes that the Japanese committed against your people in the 1940s?
How's that Bataan Death March going? Sorry, sweetie.
So that was a, really... I don't even know why I brought that up. It's just, oh my gosh.
It's like when you meet Greeks, so about the Turks. Not a good intro.
Not a good icebreaker, no. Yeah. So that, thankfully I didn't do that. Okay. And so I don't remember how, but eventually I got on a date with her, and we were at Lee's Sandwiches. It's kind of a classic place in California. They have the really, really sweet Vietnamese coffee. And these baguettes are just delicious and cheap. Perfect college food. And so she told me all about her mission trip. She was with YWAM, which is like a youth mission group. And she was just an incredibly virtuous person. I was very attracted to that. Mm-hmm. I found her virtue extremely attractive to me. The fact that she really cared about people in themselves in a way that, is very difficult for me to get into, to be really selfless. And she talked about her experience going into a strip club on Christmas in Rome. She went to actually the Czech Republic and Georgia, I think. She talked about going to a strip club, and they basically did a Christmas party for these strippers. It's just a crazy story because she was a 18-year-old, very sheltered, homeschooled kid. And she talked about how she was happy she was able to show love to these girls who never...
Total social rejects.
Yeah, and it's the most atheistic country in the world right now, I think.
Czech Republic.
The Czech Republic. Yeah. They're very because of communism, I believe. And, I was so blown away by this story, and she went on about it for a while, and I just was glued to it. I fell in love with her instantly, I think. So I kept hanging out with her a little bit, and then COVID happened. This was crazy when you were in college. Mm-hmm. They sent us all home, it was actually right at spring break. So everyone's going home for spring break, and they announced, okay, don't come back for a week after spring break. And I was like, oh man, I'm going to miss my chance with her. But at this time, we thought COVID would last only a couple of weeks. So
2 weeks to slow the curve.
Yeah. So we were like, okay,
we'll flatten the curve, whatever it was.
Yeah, we'll go to... I said, there's a dance at the end of the year, and I'm not going to see you for a bit. You want to go? And she said, no, I'm not attracted to you. I never will be. And she has such a way of shutting people down, especially in this respect, because I think she just never wants to give people the wrong idea. She did, you know.
Oh my gosh, and I thought women could never just, put the smack
No,
down.
she has this very harsh side to her. Very like, it's very Japanese in a way. Very like, samurai kind of intensity. She's like, no, I have no interest, and I'll never like you in that way.
Okay.
And so I was just crushed, and I went home and I was devastated. But
been there.
Yeah,
been there more than a few dozen times.
Yeah, but I was persistent.
Uh-huh.
And I would just sort of call her. We talk every night. She still wanted to be friends. Uh-huh. So we talk every night for hours sometimes over FaceTime during COVID. Because COVID went on. She stayed at the school in the dorms, but it was like total isolation lockdown. It wasn't fun. And then I was home in Vegas doing online school. So we'd FaceTime and we would argue about theology relentlessly. We'd have arguments, discussions, a lot of discussions, some arguments, some heated debates. Then we'd joke around a bit. And it was really through that kind of those conversations and discussions and debates that we had that she started to really love me and to appreciate me as someone who she could see being her husband, someone who has like an internal strength, right? Because I demonstrated my convictions to her. And I felt very passionately about theology and about the things I was learning as I was becoming Anglican especially.
And how old, you were what, 20, 21?
I was, let me think, I was 19.
Now, I have been...
when we first started dating.
Okay, I have been assured that if you are not six-pack, if you don't have a six-pack, 6 feet tall with six figures, you have no hope whatsoever.
Yeah.
I mean, no hope.
Yeah.
Now, neither you nor I are 6 feet tall. I'm actually 5'11". Okay, yeah. But I'm a touch under. So I'm not
5'9" on a good day.
Okay, I didn't notice, but I'm not 6 feet tall.
I didn't go to high school. I didn't even know height was a big deal until I think I was married. I was like, what? 6 feet?
And I definitely don't have a six-pack. I have a keg. And when I met my wife, I was making $200 a month as an English teacher in, Anyway, that's another story. But, I mean, this is a story. Your wife fell in love with you because you could have a conversation.
I think so, yeah. I mean, that's pretty much the number one thing is being able to talk. And ironically, my wife's, she's a very pretty woman. And she, especially growing up, people are very nice to her because she's so pretty and so kind. I mean, like she was really just sort of the good kid, of the family. And so she really was not challenged because of that. And because I was willing to go and say, well, why do you believe that? It doesn't make sense to me. And I would ask her questions and really take an interest in her and her beliefs and in what she thought and showed appreciation for her as a person, independent of anything else. That's what really connected us.
You became friends first.
Yes, we became really good friends first.
And I know so many guys go, well, you just get friend zoned. That's like, well, yeah, I mean, I've been friend zoned by a lot of women when I was single. Sure, but I became friends with one woman and then married her.
Yeah, exactly. Friend zoning is not, it's not a zone, it's just you don't really, pardon me, but you don't really stay, I don't have women friends now. I just don't. I mean, I'll have acquaintances and I've had great conversations with women, and it's not that I dislike them. It's just, that's just something that, I would never go hang out with a woman the way I would with a guy at all. Yeah, and so that's kind of what it is being in the friend zone in a lot of ways but you have to cut your losses. And I got to that point. I told her, we're so close at this point. We hang out, we talk every day. You've driven out from California to my house and stayed with my family for a bit. I did the same with you. At this point, we're basically dating. I can't, I was pretty confrontational. I can't continue this friendship and possibly date anyone else. I can't, and I want to get married. It was a big priority for me in my life to get married.
As it should be for most men.
Yeah. And I was like, I really want to respect both of us. If you're not interested in this, we're going to have to tone things back. Mm-hmm. And, she kind of admitted, well, she's, feeling all that, lovey-dovey stuff. And it really worked. But that, it takes courage, and it takes, like you said, there's a lot of losses along the way. Sometimes even with the person you love and the person you want to be married to. And so that's the key is having self-respect is sort of another aspect of it. I think, a lot of people who make six figures have self-respect because they got six that way because of their self-respect, their ability to be disciplined, etc., or because of the fact that they have so much money, they feel good about themselves. And it's the same with being 6 foot tall. If everyone's you probably were in athletics, you probably learn discipline, you learn these things, or people just treat you so well because you're tall that you learn that self-respect. You learn that you're a valuable person. And so I think
you also learn that you have really bad back problems.
Yeah.
Guys like 6'3", 6'4".
Oh yeah, I know a 6'8" guy, and he's really in trouble. He can't. I mean, imagine trying to go on a plane or fly internationally. God forbid. I mean,
my brother's 6'3", horrible back problems, and I don't have any.
Yeah, me neither. I always say every chair is designed for me.
Yeah.
I'm 5'9".
We're in that sweet spot for height where the world is designed for us.
Yeah, that's what I always say. I'm like, I don't really get the big deal. I mean, and my muscles get a lot bigger, a lot faster, and my gains.
Yeah,
I mean,
there you go.
You're a little bit shorter. It makes a big deal.
Yeah.
Well,
also with losing weight. Oh you look good. Oh, thanks.
Yeah. I mean, imagine how long it takes to lose weight when you're 6'8". I mean. That's just
for
ridiculous.
It to show, right?
Yeah,
for it to show.
Yeah,
but I mean, what you did was that was really courtship. That was dating. What is dating? Mm-hmm. I mean, what dating really should be is you're becoming friends with this person.
Yes.
And it's like that saying goes: men fall in love with their eyes, women fall in love with their ears. And so you tapped into that part of a woman's psyche, the ability to have a conversation, to be interesting to her, but also to be interested in her. Mm-hmm. And that's what I find so many males have a problem with. They don't have the social skills to talk to women, and then their brains are just absolutely fried on well, I can't say the term, adult content.
Yeah.
Just fried on it. So this extremely negative view of females. Mm-hmm. They've oftentimes dealt with female teachers who are extremely hostile to their male students.
Yeah.
They have no male authority figures in their life, figures of authority who are stable. Or they had these very pushover dads. You were very lucky to have a father who was a very strong figure, had very strong integrity. You had your mother's father, very strong, integrity, and so your view of women, was formed by your mother, who was raised by this guy who had tremendous integrity, very strong character. And I mean, what advice would you give to guys who are like, I just, I'm trying, I've been through all these, I can't make it with women. What is it? I think it was like some obnoxious number, like half of males under 22 or 25 have never asked a woman out on a date, kind of thing. I mean, what would you say to guys who are they just want to get married? They want to find a woman. They're having a horrible time. They're seeing all these posts on X about some pastor who married the Reform Party girl, and they're thinking, is this what I have to settle for? Great that she's Reformed, but do you really want to be the cleanup crew?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, my wife and I kind of how do I put this? We're the only person for each other, really. We both had, a small relationship before and didn't go anywhere. And both of us were the first, we were our first, what's the word? Relation. I'll put it that way.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that was very
body
special
count
for me.
0.
My advice is to be very bold, and to take big risks, and sort of make big sacrifices. I think there's this idea that you can win in everything in life, and it's not true. Sacrifice is real. When you sacrifice something, often you're sacrificing something real, like I actually want something I want to be good at. If I want to be a great basketball player and I want to be a great violinist and I want to be a great worker, probably not going to achieve all three. Basically impossible. And I'm not going to have a wife if I'm all three of those, that's for sure. So that's learning to sacrifice your dream or your like the hopes of your heart for the sake of it, or take huge risks, like put yourself in. So, you know, I got married when I was 21 years old, and it was difficult. It was really hard. Socially, that's still very unacceptable in a lot of ways. I wasn't financially stable.
It's acceptable here.
Acceptable here, but yeah, it was like it was a difficult thing in more so her community, you know, all these concerns, and I had no income, right? I was still a student when we got married.
And to make it clear, your wife is sure ethnically Japanese, but I mean, what was like her great grandparents came over?
Yeah, like all of her great grand. She is very Americanized. And
so it's not like, because a lot of people listening to this will go, oh, well, he's just a weeb. Right?
No.
You're not a weeb, but they'll go, oh, he just got this ultra traditional woman. He doesn't know what it's like for us.
No, it's been hard. I mean, look, my marriage has been hair pulling out difficult at a lot of points, just utterly devastating. Yeah, of course. And that is how things are. Like, that's another thing that I wish I could have accepted sooner, is that it's just not easy. And the one thing I'm glad I did was I took big risks. I went and said, you know, I was aggressive in my pursuit of this thing, and nothing other than my faith was in front of it. Everything was secondary to being a Christian, you know, at the time an Anglican, and getting married. And so I did it when I wasn't financially stable, and I said, you know, I'm not going to build my marriage on the foundation of my career. I'm going to build my career on the foundation of my marriage.
Oh, very good.
These are two different ways of looking at life. And I see, honestly, having gone through all of this, not that money's ever really been a stress, but other things related to it, like me, finding the secure career sort of job that is going to give healthcare, all these things. And I've had it a few times, and I've moved around. But my overall point is, through that journey, there's a lot of stress. And that stress definitely translates to the relationship, but it's worth it. But that said, I kind of get it. Like, if you build your career first, you get married when you're 30, that might not be so bad either. It would be nice if I could have gotten married when I already had healthcare and all these things.
And to be clear, the project that you're working on with your father, this is not something that was going on when you went to get married.
No, when I got married, I was in college, and then I was working in a coffee shop before I got married, and then I was going to go to grad school for English, and I didn't want to do that because there's no money in it, and I would just be miserable. I worked for an oil company for a year, and I would travel 5 days a week, often, to places like Bakersfield, Kingman, middle of nowhere, Southwest United States, to run court records.
So where's Bakersfield from Las Vegas to Bakersfield? How far would, like, 3 hours?
7 hours. About. I think it was 5 to 7 hours. I would have to go to Fresno too. That was even longer.
Ooh.
And it was just, I would drive down there, and then I would stay in a hotel 5 nights a week. And that was horrible, right? Because I'm not with my wife, and I was making a lot of money, so we go to nice dinners, but nothing really makes up that time. And of course, it gets in the way of having kids. So that's just those kinds of sacrifices. I guess I'm being transparent about the difficulties of getting married young as well. That I took that job because it was the only job offered to me. I couldn't believe it. Someone asking a guy with an English major, hey, could you do this job? And it was all these benefits and all these, when you get travel benefits, it's addicting because it's tax-free.
Yeah.
And I just would live very frugally when I was traveling, and then I'd come home and we'd spend so much money on fancy dinners. We became huge foodies. We went to Japan, we did all this crazy stuff. But
you grew together.
We grew together, exactly.
You built a life together.
Yeah, and I think that was very necessary. It's very difficult for both of us to sort of fulfill these roles. And being, C.S. Lewis makes an interesting point that I read it recently, that, some people have a heroic temperament. So like I mentioned all this stuff about me almost dying, and my papa who was special forces in Vietnam and doing all this crazy stuff, and my dad who's like fighting the man. And some people have this heroic temperament, and they're put in a situation where being a hero is actually quite mundane. It's quite pleasant in a way, but also not, because it doesn't feel very heroic to be, especially when you don't have kids yet. And and some people have an unheroic temperament, and they're forced into that situation where they have to do crazy things. And God puts these challenges in front of us to humble us to what we need to be, because it's humble to be a hero when you're not, and it's humble to be not so heroic and do basic things when you feel like you were designed to be some larger than life character. Because I'm always going to compare myself to my father. But the journey into the heart of Christ is to compare yourself, is to see God as my Father, and to follow the divine will as well, or to follow the divine will, to submit to it. So I think that's sort of where marriage has gotten me. A lot of people, I've heard like you're saved through your spouse. It's definitely true. Like I would not be the person I am today. I was very naive in a lot of ways. But
women have living with women, it's a very civilizing effect on males.
Yeah.
It's very, like, wait, when was the last time your pillowcases were washed? Like, seriously? Have you flossed? Like, very...
Oh, yeah. My wife just bought me floss picks. She's,
you're going to wear that, My wife no longer says you're going to wear that. She goes, you're not going to wear that. And I go, oh, okay. What do you mean, like sweatshirts with a hoodie is like not okay for the... Okay, sure, And it's they're very... I'm very spoiled with my wife, how she prepares all of this fast, friendly food. I'd just be eating peanut butter and jellies were it not for her. Just back and forth at, the Great Greek or Stephanos is just eating falafel constantly. But no, I mean, living around women, it really, it civilizes you as a male.
Yeah. And that's exactly it. Kind of teaches you to live not an extreme life, but a life with ordered affections. And it's the same for women.
I like that.
Yeah. Like for women, the primary issue seems to be disordered affections in life.
Absolutely.
And so by being brought with a man, like my wife has learned to prioritize me over other people. Women nowadays are taught to prioritize everyone, like all these, you can't do that. You can only...
Especially a corporate boss who, he needs that info moved from one spreadsheet to another spreadsheet.
Yes.
For that report that, some middle manager is never going to read.
Yes. And like the virtues can turn on themselves in that way. Because if
they become vices at that point.
Yeah, because you're so caring, but if you're not sort of really focused on what's going on at home, and it's the same story for me, of course, in other ways. But that's what we've learned, is sort of how to complete each other and order each other's affections through our love for one another. Interestingly, back to the original question, which is what's your advice? Yeah, I mean, like taking risks. I went to Bible college. If you don't get married at Bible college, that sucks. I'm not saying it's your fault, but that does suck.
Did they say a ring by spring?
Ring by spring.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I got my MR degree. That's... She got her MRS. That's one of the main things that you do at Bible college, is you find someone to marry who's half decent, and and I got more than half decent, so I was very lucky.
Phenomenal. You have a phenomenal life. You're a very lucky man.
Yeah.
And I mean, for so many guys, they go, "Well, I'm never going to go to Bible college."
Yeah.
What would you say to them?
Well, find some. If you have to move, if you have to do whatever, just put yourself in a situation. We don't control outcomes. We just control probabilities. And putting yourself in a situation where, to the detriment of everything else, you make it more likely, whatever that means, is probably worth it, because you'll really thank yourself. But it is painful. Not setting your standards too high and living in your heart. I think that's the most important thing. Now, I mean, my wife is very beautiful. But in either case, you know, if you live in your heart, like you said, men sort of date with their eyes, I think if you're dating with your noose, if you're dating with your noose, you will find beauty and virtue. And that's really like why, you know, I'm still incredibly in love with my wife, is because I see her virtue. She works as a caseworker with some of the most disordered, chaotic, downright evil, and victimized, in the case of the children, people in the world. Like, you know, in Vegas especially, Child Protective Services is not, oh, well, you're conservative, so we're taking your kid away. That's never the case. It's always, well, we found drugs in the baby. The baby has crack in its system, so we have to take the baby away. And then the mom is all upset about it. And, like, often multiple children, like 7 to 10 children, you know, it's just crazy.
All different colors.
A rainbow.
Yeah.
It's really, I mean, it's really just, it's really devastating. And so she really, well, I forget why I even brought this up. Well, I guess she just has this incredible virtue. And so I love how much care and how much prayer she has for these people, how much she prays for them. And she had a hard time coming to Orthodoxy, and that was not her background. And that was a long journey. And that the second advice I have is, if I was not Orthodox, but I was Anglican. It was really hard for her to be Anglican. And with that good faith, she still emotionally wasn't there often, and I wish I was more patient, because I would get upset. And eventually I learned to be patient and to say, you know, it's fine. If she's willing to try, if she's willing to go to church with me and do all these things, I'm not going to give her a hard time that she doesn't like it. You know, that's something she'll get over, and she has. One of the major things is she works as a caseworker. And, you know, I said, you work with all of these children who don't have moms, right? Like, almost always it's a case of the kid being taken away from the mom. And you should be asking the Theotokos to intercede for these children and to be a mother to them, because they're losing that. And like hundreds of children in Vegas are in Child Haven, it was designed to be somewhere very temporary. Like temporary housing, we get you a foster home in a couple days. They can be there for months now, because we just don't have enough foster families. And the nightmares involved, it's horrible. And she has this wonderful virtue, and she started doing that. It had a huge impact on her. And so I learned patience, right? Because before I would just be like, why are you so against Mary? Like, why are you against anything that sounds Catholic? But I learned, okay, if I'm actually loving and I'm actually giving her pastoral advice, not out of a desire to control her, but a desire to help her, then she will, you know, either reject it and it is what it is, or she'll find that heart that I have for her at the minimum. And that has helped a lot. And now she does that. And I think it helps these kids. I think it's important. The people who work in the CPS here are very kind people. Mm-hmm. And I'm thankful. My wife's job is not to take kids away. It's to her job is to help reunify. So she does everything she can to coach these parents, almost always addicts and mentally ill, through services, and try to help them. And if she can't, and after 2 years, I think they're given a lot of leeway, sometimes 3 years, then the rights are terminated. But she's praying for these kids. She also works with the kids. I'm so thankful. When she first applied, God intervened. She wanted the job where, like, she would be investigating and taking kids out of the situation, and that's so much harder. She knows that.
Absolutely.
Than helping to reunify.
Yeah,
and she just had a success story yesterday of like 2 kids getting adopted.
Oh, wonderful.
Which was because the parents just were never going to be involved. They lived in a different state, and it was tough to get that to that point, and the kids were so excited about being adopted by this foster family.
Wow, that's wonderful.
So yeah, like there's a lot of wins, but yeah, finding living in your noose, that's a big key to it, is finding the virtue in people.
And noose, for those watching means like the activity of the soul.
Yes.
Living the sort of eye of the soul, one might say, what the soul does.
Yeah, my old priest would say, like, seeing God or seeing people as Jesus sees them or as God sees them.
Yeah, you see past the facades, and you just see them for the the scars, wounds, warts,
Yeah.
that really are there. You see them as the terrified people that they really are. People just sinning because they're afraid of death.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We're seeing the good in them. I mean, and that's the other part of it is you also see, I look for the good in people, and that's hard. I'm a negative person. I've always been known. You're going to the children's hospital, you just become a negative. My dad would always say, Zach, why are you so negative? You need to have an attitude of gratitude. I'm like, what? Gratitude? It's just not as cool as thinking everything sucks.
Yeah.
But I learned.
So. I do. There was one story because you made a Larry David reference, and I confess I've never actually watched an entire episode of Curb Your Enthusiasm. I've just seen clips.
Yeah, that's probably for the best.
Yeah. Although the one that I thought was really funny was when he found out that he was actually a Gentile. And all of a sudden, he was able to like do roofing, work on cars, build fences. That was very funny. You have a story about your grandfather and Larry David.
Oh,
if
yeah.
You don't mind me sharing.
My Jewish grandparents, I'm not super close to them. I have infinite respect and love for them. My grandfather is like a great doctor, and my grandmother's wicked smart, very, very wonderful.
And your grandfather was also very supportive of you becoming an
Anglican, yeah, which was shocking. I mean, but I loved it. They're very supportive of when I was becoming a pastor, they were proud of me becoming a priest. Mm-hmm. And I don't know why, because it's not like they particularly fall out of any stereotypes, which is sort of my dad sees Curb Your Enthusiasm when it first comes out, and he thinks this is so great because Dad is he thinks that his dad is just like Larry David. It's like literally the spitting image, and it's true. It's totally true that my grandpa is very much like Larry David. Like you can't go to a restaurant with him, we had to be like my parents would intentionally not take them to the favorite restaurant. Because it just would be nightmarish at times.
I've known some people like this. It's like,
yeah.
I like them one-on-one, but getting them in a group, it's, and then you realize, I'm like, wait, I'm that person. I'm the one who can't be brought into the group at a restaurant.
Yeah, so then, they had to maintain the reputation of their favorite restaurant, so they don't want to do that. So they went to, my dad wants to show his dad, Grandpa, Curb Your Enthusiasm, and they go and sit down. My Gigi's there, and my family, like my mom, I think, and probably two of the cousins. Everyone's dying laughing at this. It's so funny. I mean, Curb Your Enthusiasm, it's hard not to find hilarious.
Which episode was it?
I don't know. I have no idea. This was when it first came out, so it must have been one of the first few episodes. And my grandpa's just sitting there like this the whole time, and he's just watching it. And my grandpa, he's really, kind of a stern guy for the most part. He's a New York Jew, and or New Jersey Jew, and they finished the episode. They're all like, my dad turns to him, aren't you just like him? And my grandpa says, I don't get it at all. I'm nothing like that guy. I don't know what you're talking about. And my grandpa's like completely unamused by the whole thing. He didn't even find it funny. Not only did he not think he was anything like him. My grandparents, they would go to synagogue and like they'd bring the family, and they would drive to synagogue, which you're not allowed to do. But they would park like 3 blocks away. That was really funny to me. And then they'd walk up. And so they were interesting characters.
Oh, the walk from New Jersey was so far.
Yeah. Oh, it was really good. We love, my family loves our Gigi and Grandpa. They're characters, though. They're really like characters out of a book.
The priest who received me into the church was Father James Bernstein, whose birth name was Aaron. Aaron Bernstein from Brooklyn, New York. Yeah. It's Father James, right? And he called it the Jew fro. He had like the little curly hair, right?
Oh, yeah.
And he grew up in Brooklyn, and his father was a Hasidic rabbi. And spoke Yiddish, the family did, and his parents had 2 fridges and everything. And he was a character, and I remember he was one of the founders of Jews for Jesus. And so through this parish, St. Paul's in Briar, Washington, lovely parish, in Briar, just north of Seattle, there would be people coming through who had been part of the Jews for Jesus, and they were all characters, all of them. They were very like this is Moshe Rosenberg, and it's like, hello, I apologize, I'm rather sick, very like stereotypical, very loving people, very gentle, very empathetic people. And you find that with Christianity, that whatever good there is in I shouldn't say whatever, but the good things that there are in those cultures, that Christianity illuminates them, much like cleaning off a stained glass window. There's reds, there's blues, there's clear tile. The reds don't become blue, the blues don't become clear, the clear don't become brown, the black, obsidian glass doesn't become another color. No, but with Christianity, it's like wiping them off. The red is more shimmering, it's more bright. The obsidian is even more brilliant, and it's obsidianness. The clear tiles are just even more translucent.
Yes.
And I found that with converts to Christianity from Judaism, they're highly empathetic people. They're very good at networking. They're very good at the mortgage for the church was paid off very early. But they put those skills from their culture to use for Christianity. And so, we love these people, and we want to see them come to Christ, because that's just the only way there's going to be salvation, one way or another. We welcome everyone to come to the banquet.
Yeah, that's why I'm so into Japan. I actually hated Japan until I met Kelsey. I just had no interest in it.
Really?
Didn't even think samurai were cool. Didn't like ninjas. I know. I was that bad. I was a real Roman Empire kid.
Oh, well,
you gotta be.
In relation to the Roman Empire, samurais are not that cool. But
I was into Roman Empire, tanks. That makes me an American white boy. That's my claim to being raised here. I love tanks, and I loved. So yeah, that's I just was not into it at all. I hated sushi. I basically only eat things if ketchup was on it until I was 18 or something. And even up to meeting Kelsey, I would barely eat anything other than chips and salsa. And I was very kind of insular in that way. And then, I'm trying to impress her family and stuff. And they're all Japanese, other than one, Opa Hans, who I love to death.
Yeah.
And he's German. He's her step-grandfather. But step-grandfather. And so, like all Japanese, 100% Japanese. And the first time I really meet her grandparents, they're serving sashimi. And it's like salmon that they caught in Alaska. It's really high quality, but I had never had raw fish before. I refused to even try it, like, growing up. And I also didn't know how to use chopsticks. So, now I didn't say that. I didn't say I didn't know how to use chopsticks. Yeah. But I sit down to eat, and her grandma is a character. She's so over the top, like, funny. She rides Harleys. Yeah. Like, she would ride Harleys. She was a biker for her whole life. And she comes out with these Hello Kitty chopsticks attached at the top, and they're pink. And she gives them to me. And the worst part is I was actually very appreciative because I couldn't use chopsticks. It was like a godsend to me because I have to pick up this slippery fish that I didn't want to eat. And then at some point, I'm like, this is okay. I don't mind this so much. And it started there. And I just got into more and more Japanese stuff. And Kelsey, it was very important to me. I know my children will be half Japanese, so I want to raise them with some of the traditions, some of the language, all this stuff. So I learned a lot of it in order to properly respect the culture that my wife comes from. And I think that's been great. Like, it's been something we really bond over, is our love of Japan, our love of Japanese food, especially. And, you know, I think, so, you know, we've been to Japan twice, and this is another thing. A lot of people, they'll talk about, like, race mixing and stuff like that. And it's like, okay, that's another advice I'll give about getting married. You know, like, just drop it. It's just, try to be, if it's not, if you really can't, that's fine. But, like, I see this online all the time. I don't get it. You know, I don't get it at all. Because ultimately, for one, I was very appreciative because my culture had fallen apart into total. My dad had no interest in maintaining any Jewish traditions. And my only real carry-on was some Italian stuff from my papa, you know. And I have a few, and I'm very protective of those, like, things that were handed down to me, but it wasn't much. While Kelsey, you know, she has the opportunity to inherit all of these things because they've stuck together. They've self-segregated for so long. I mean, that's incredible to me. 4 or 5 generations of self-segregating and only marrying other Japanese people. And the camps probably had a big impact on that, because all of her grandparents, great-grandparents were in the camps. The grandparents when they were babies often, and the great-grandparents obviously when they're adults. And I think one of the sets, I think, lost their house, and another set would have lost their farm. Oh. But their neighbors, their white neighbors, protected it and stopped, because, you know, Hispanics would move in and take the Japanese stuff because it was just no one cared. Like you don't have that anymore. They had no property, and I think they were paid back by Reagan, like a small amount, $20,000 each or something. But yeah, they had this kind of tough mindset, and they have, bringing it to what you were saying, like, you know, people bring their own stained glass, and I can see a lot of this Japanese persevering temperament in my wife. I mean, she has a lot of qualities that would be considered masculine. She's a very sensitive person, extremely sensitive, but she has this ability to persevere and to tough it out. That's very Japanese, and it's why they're such a successful country, I think. But it's also why, you know, her family has done well. And I mean, they're patriots. I couldn't even imagine that. You know, could you imagine being a patriot if your great-grandparents were put in a camp and then, like, they lost all their property, like their heritage, and they had to rebuild everything? Now, I might be the patriot, but it's kind of surprising to me that even their grandparents
I wouldn't
still love their country. Some of them are bitter, but a lot of them are very grateful and still love America, in spite of all those things that happen. And that's cool. That's a very, very cool thing. It shows a lot of resilience, perseverance, and low expectations is the other thing. I mean,
that's a key to happiness in life.
Yes. They don't think life's fair. I mean, they're brought to America, they're paid half as much and put in a camp. Like, you know, their great-great-grandparents, or, you know, the first ones who came worked on the railroad. You know, and they came from a country where her dad's grandpa was, I think it's her dad's great-grandpa won the Medal of Honor in the war against Russia in 1907.
So this is a high status.
Yeah, it's like a high status family, and they come here and obviously they weren't treated very well, but they have this wonderful resilience that I see in my wife all the time. So yeah, I think that's very key, is that the saints really bring this into perspective. Is this difference in personality? I think St. Paisios says there's no cure for personality.
I like that.
Yeah, and I tell myself that all the time. Father Moses said it in one video, or a couple, I think. And I really like that that reminder, because a lot of the time people will try to cure your personality. They'll try to say, well, you shouldn't be confrontational, you shouldn't do this. I'm just a confrontational guy. I mean, I'm polite, but I don't like to beat around the bush very much when I really believe in something. I'd rather just... You told me once really good advice. Show your ugly face first.
Oh, yeah. I learned that when I was teaching English. Yeah. Was it me that told you that?
Yeah. It's good advice.
Okay, well, thank you. I'm glad.
Very good advice. Yeah, yeah. I think
if people know how ugly it can get, they tend to all right. Let's okay, yeah. Let's not let it go back to that. Okay, yeah. Let's just
exactly. So be honest about your beliefs and what you think is right and wrong, and life goes a lot better. But I think I have a lot of appreciation for Japanese culture. And we went to Japan this last time, to Nagasaki, to Fukui, which is one of the Goto Islands. Oh. Have you seen Silence, the movie?
Yes. Is that the one about the mining island?
No. No, Silence is about the Portuguese...
Oh, sorry. It's about the Jesuit missionaries.
Yeah.
That one I have not seen. I did watch a documentary about mining island.
Okay, yeah, that one, I was actually just near that. It's called, was it Gunkajima or something?
I think so, yeah.
It's
totally, like, abandoned.
Yes.
Yeah, very eerie.
I wanted to do a tour of it, but the tour right now is just not very good. They just take you on a boat. You're not allowed to go on the island, which is too bad. But for a while, it was the densest population. It just shows you the resilience of the Japanese people as the densest population. Well, I think the Koreans worked there, actually, now that I think about it. Yeah, that was tough. I think maybe both. I don't know. Off topic. But yeah, we went to Nagasaki, and it's famous for the atomic bomb, but it's actually where a lot of the Christians were, as well as Hiroshima. And the atomic bomb was dropped directly over the Hiroshima Cathedral. Mm-hmm. But it was dropped close enough to the Nagasaki Cathedral that it was blown a kilometer, that one of the statues, I think of St. Paul, was blown a kilometer away. And it's just unbelievable. Like, they have that statue in their museum. It's very moving. But it was extremely moving because we had been going to museum. We're chill vacationers. Like, some people are packing their day. We go to one museum and then sake time or something, we get dinner. We ate way too much. But yeah, it's like, we went to maybe 3 museums leading up to that about the Christians in Japan, and how they were at the start, and then how they're persecuted, and then how they came back sort of and reemerged when the country opened back up. And one of the most shocking things is, even in the 1870s, there are martyrs in Japan.
Yes.
Yeah, and like, that's brutal. Like, when it's Westerners were here and there are martyrs. And so we're learning about how much these Christians have struggled to be able to practice their faith. And we go to the Atomic Bomb Museum. It's completely, that was devastating. Absolutely. It's really an incredible thing that these Urakami Christians had this lineage from the original missionaries and kept it going for so long, and they finally get their cathedral back, and it's blown to smithereens. And in the Atomic Bomb Museum, aside from any politics about the A-bomb, they have a wall, really interesting, about how they determine the target for the atomic bomb, and it goes through the timeline. And that's such a genius thing. I never had even thought of that. Like, why would they choose Nagasaki, right? Well, it was just mentioned at one point by like a lieutenant colonel or something. It was like a relatively low level stat. It wasn't like President Truman looked at it and said, we're going to target Nagasaki.
Weren't they going to hit like Kyoto, and there was cloud cover over Kyoto? So or was that?
They were going to hit Kyoto, and then there was an advocacy to not do it because it was so historically important. Okay. So they took it off the list. And then they were going to hit, I forget the name. It was a steel, more of a military target. Nagasaki was very much a military target as well.
It was a port, yeah.
Yeah, a shipbuilding. Mitsubishi Shipbuilding was there. Okay. So they were building tons of ships. But, I don't want to get into the politics of the atomic bomb. But they were going for, I forget the name, some steelworks target, and then there was cloud cover, and they went to Nagasaki. But Nagasaki only made it onto the list because it was it was very informal, the way the list was constructed. That was the most shocking part to me. I
think a lot of things in life are surprisingly informal when you get down to them,
Yeah, it's like, this is why I'm not, I wouldn't describe myself as a conspiracy theorist, because, I think crazy things happen. It's just, very often it's shockingly like, what, we're just some guy basically reprinted the list and added Nagasaki because it's not a totally invalid target, but they didn't take into consideration the Christians. Yeah. And, yeah, that was just shocking that so many died, and many Korean slaves died as well. And that museum was very moving. And the thing that was most moving to me that I totally agree with, and I think is like the main message of the museum is not actually to be like, well, this was so messed up. How could you guys do this? It was Nagasaki should be the last place to ever be I don't know, hit
with a nuclear weapon.
To be destroyed with a nuclear weapon. It should be the last atomic bomb ever dropped, ever. And that is a beautiful message. And dedicating your museum to that perseverance rather than to historical griping, because it just turns into a mess with Japan, especially all the things they did, right? Yeah. Like, you don't want to get into that.
Yeah.
What we can get into is all the melted rosaries that they could show. They were hearing confessions when the bomb dropped. And so there's all these melted rosaries, a conglomeration that were donated to the museum. And like I said, it's just very moving. We went to the Goto Islands. And so the Japanese have like a Christian heritage. That's one thing that I'd like to say is that, and that's one argument that the Japanese Christians are always making, is that it is Japanese to be Christian. That the Christians in Japan have suffered for their faith to such an extent and integrated into the culture that even though there aren't many Christians in Japan, that the faith has taken root in Japan. I mean,
yes.
Right now, it's the most expensive place to be baptized, as in for every $2 million invested into missionary work in Japan, there's one baptism. So it's very unsuccessful at the moment. Well,
wow.
I wouldn't say unsuccessful, but very slow. But, we went to the Goto...
And this is for Catholics, Protestants, and Orthodox, total.
All of it.
Wow.
And so we went to, the Goto Islands, and they have all these churches, and they're so humble, but so beautiful. And they're just left open all week because it's Japan. Everyone trusts each other. Right. And so we drove around.
High trust society.
Drove around, and just seeing that these people work so hard to build their churches and rebuild after the atomic bomb. After being bombed by fellow Christians, they rebuilt. They didn't lose the faith. They've kept it. And it was just beautiful to see sort of that faith take hold in such a difficult country. But this is another example. What's important to me is that my wife shares my faith, that we have a faith in God and in Christ, and that we want to raise our children in Christ's love. And her Japaneseness, or her personality informed by that, is integrated into that.
Absolutely.
So there's not ever really truly a multiracial marriage in the church. There's only that. And that's controversial. And people are free to disagree. And you know what? They're free to want to marry someone of their own race. I think that's perfectly valid. For me, I feel like I gained more out of it because my culture was ransacked by American consumerism.
And that's a problem so many Americans have now. There's no culture. So
yes.
They're looking for, and I think that's one of the draws of Orthodoxy, is that you can sort of attach yourself onto this culture because we have no culture.
Yes. I mean, I know friends who basically have become Greek. That's, and I'm happy for them. It's like it becomes a big part of their life because, you volunteer at Greek Fest, you do this, you do that. And they love the food, and they're not literally Greek, but they adopt the culture, right? And they don't. It's the same with me. I'm never gonna really be Japanese, but I kind of do a lot of Japanese stuff because that's what I fell in love with, and it's the same. It's the same if you go to I certainly am more Greek than I was when I started. I didn't really like Greek food, now I like it. It's kind of that thing. It's. Yeah.
So, where do you go from here in life? What do you see as the 5-year plan at this point in terms of just your life in general?
I really want to have kids, that'd be nice.
It's wonderful to have kids.
Yeah, I think people should do it as soon as possible, and my view on possibilities definitely changed. That's definitely something between you and your priest and your partner, but that's really, even now, like every day, I kind of feel that the weight of selfishness, because selfishness feels good in the moment, but the more that the more that days pass and I work hard and do this, it's like maybe if I didn't go on a vacation ever again, I don't know if I would complain if I had. You want to have a mission, and I think that's my 5-year plan, really. And this is sort of going back to my strategy with getting married. I was like, well, I'm going to get married, and then everything comes second to that. And so, that's kind of like, I want to have children. I want to start a family. I want to live a life of sacrifice for that family and, lay down my life for the foundation of that family so that they can grow and do their thing. And that's my plan. I mean, I work for a concrete company, and that's good, on my dad's side project. But that career only exists to facilitate that goal. It's not what I imagine myself doing. And it's tough, but that's kind of what I want, is to live that life of sacrifice. And of course, diving more into Orthodoxy. I think that's really, really how that's going to happen for me. Having children, having a family, is having this kind of structure. Because as much as Japan has given me food I like, and this kind of, I'm a big fan of kabuki theater, and my wife and I do watch some anime, and as much as all these things are nice, the culture of the church is what will transform the heart. And so focusing on these two things, my relationship with my wife and having children, and all the sacrifice involved in that, and then the church, that makes me busy. Both are great sacrifices, and this is something I've learned, is that being a man is about sacrifice. It's about laying down your life so that other things can take root. It's about
Absolutely.
Decreasing so that God can increase. And when you make that choice, you are given eternal life, and you experience it even now. And I think that it's hard to imagine before, but that's the struggle. But that's my 5-year plan, is kind of just do that. It's scary. I mean, I think that's one of the tragedies of today, is that you can choose not to have children, and that is, that's just a crazy thing. It's like it's a crazy responsibility, if that makes sense. That I don't know if we should have, but we do, and that
the responsibility of children is a crazy.
Yeah. My wife and I are both on board with having children to some extent, but I think that's kind of, it's a choice we made in the past, to be open, is to not have children.
Now it's just a debate between whether you should have half a dozen or a dozen.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. So that's what it's about. And then, being honest, yeah, that's what it's about, is sort of that sacrifice that's required to do that, and focusing on making that happen.
Adding to your point about the sacrifice of being a man,
Mm-hmm.
I look at my role as a husband. I'm effectively, my career, everything I do, providing the house, as a support staff. I'm the support staff for my wife.
Yes.
Because what's the most important job in society is a rearing of new citizens.
Yes.
Right. As a man, your job is to be there to allow your wife to then bring these children into the world. Who's the most important person in a child's life until they're 7? It's a mom. After that becomes dad, right?
Mm-hmm.
And your relationship with your kids changes because they change, because you change, right? But you always are there for them. You're always dad. You're always, they are always the purpose why you do, what you do, how you do it, and why you continually put up with the drudgery of life. Children bring tremendous joy to that. They give purpose to the drudgery.
Yeah.
And so I know you'll be a phenomenal father. I know your wife will
be
a phenomenal mother. You guys are a wonderful couple. And we are so incredibly lucky to have you guys at our parish. I look forward to getting to know you even more and more.
Well, we'll be blessed if I'm half as good of a father as you, I'll be tremendously blessed.
Oh, you're too
oh my gosh, tremendously blessed. I mean, this man has the most beautiful family. They're so hospitable, so kind. I mean,
you can be a better father than I am. Believe me, you can be much better.
I don't know about that.
You'll do phenomenally well. And it's phenomenal to have you on. I'm so grateful that you're willing to come on. Such an honor to have you on.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here. Thank you for having a chooch like me as my papa. He'd always call himself a chooch. I don't know It's like an Italian, kind of means, I don't know, I don't want you to get demonetized or something. Jack, imagine the rest of it.
Oh, I gotcha.
But like in an endearing way.
Just like have a joker.
Yeah, like a gesture. Like a gesture. Yeah. So, yeah, that. Thank you so much.
Well, anyone else, if you have a book you want to promote, if you have a film you want to promote, if you have a really interesting story you want to tell, and you're passing through Las Vegas, Nevada, email me. My contact information is in the video description, and we can talk about this. All right, Zach, thanks so much.